Doing well. How are you doing, Matt?
Good. Good to see you.
You too. Thank you.
Hey, Jordan, you didn't tell me the umbrellas were in the back of the storage unit.
That's that I figured that would have been a deal breaker for offerings.
He wanted you to take everything out of the unit before you found them.
That's right. I want to get some
the mountains of
activity.
So we are a couple minutes after 2 o'clock. We're still waiting for a few additional people to join us, but why don't we at least get through some of the formal parts of the meeting.
And here's Cheryl.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so we do have a quorum. So I'll go ahead and call to order this special session of the Auburn City Council and our Economic Recovery Workshop. If you would all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I will ask the city clerk, since this is a city council meeting, a special session of it, I'll go ahead and ask the city clerk to take the roll.
Councilmember Mackey.
Present.
Spokley.
Here.
Mayor Berlant.
And I am present, so that is a quorum. Go ahead and move to public comment. This is the time provided so that a person may speak to the council on an item that is on the agenda. So if there's anybody that has anything that like to speak to, now is the time. I'll first just look around to the council members, see if there's anything that either would like to add. And with that, Amy, I'll turn it to you to see if there's any public comment to be read.
I did not receive any public comment for this meeting.
Okay, fantastic. Well, then let's just go ahead and get started. Well, happy Friday, everybody. A lot seems to happen in between these meetings. So, I'm appreciative of everyone getting back together. I thought I would just kick off real quick with just a brief update on kind of the state of the county and state of the city as far as some of the health related items that are coming down. If you didn't see, the governor today announced that he plans to release some guidance next week related to the opening of churches. So he didn't talk anything about the specific of the stage 3 businesses that we'll get into a little bit, but at least starting to provide guidance to churches is going to come out. Just for this group's edification, the Board of Supervisors was scheduled to meet this week to discuss rescinding or ending their county local emergency proclamation. They met in special session today, or in closed session, didn't take any action, but they have decided they are not moving forward with ending their local emergency proclamation, mainly due to the fact that it's that local proclamation that allows the county to get federal and state funding. So just a little information. One thing I wanted to just mention to the group is, if you are watching the stats, there was an increase in the number of cases. Fortunately, not in our area. South Placer saw 6 new cases, and East Placer saw 2, as well as 1 additional fatality. So the health officer talked to us and was hoping, obviously, this is just a blip in the radar, but that's something that they're going to be watching. As far as the 6 in South Placer, several of them were from the same family. So nothing new specifically in Auburn. Testing locations, they're talking about moving the testing locations from their current spots. And one thing that was really stressed was that there's additional capacity for people who want to get tested, even if they aren't showing symptoms. So still a lot of capacity for testings. A couple just reminders that the health officer had for all of us that I think is important for us to remind our residents and our customers is specifically related to restaurants. Right now, the guidance and the exemption to allow in-dining restaurant use is really meant for those in the same household and not necessarily for parties or for multi-family gatherings. So they really stress that we really need to do our due diligence to maintain keeping with just our family members, but having the opportunity to in-dine at our restaurants. With Memorial Day, and Rob Haswell from Visit Placer, you may have more, but really asking with Memorial Day weekend and the good weather that people remember to not gather in large groups as we normally would. If you didn't see the announcement, the annual Memorial Day event held out at the multiple cemeteries has been canceled due to, again, the restrictions on gatherings. They're still putting flags up on the grave sites, but for those who served, obviously, but really just trying to stress for Memorial Day that people, stick around home, follow proper safety precautions. And then I'll just end with some stuff that kind of will hopefully get us jumpstart on some conversation related to economic recovery. The county launched a campaign called Ready, Set, Prep. And with it is a number of documents specifically related to our stage 3 businesses. When we get to that item, I can throw some of those up, but wanted to make sure that our business associations are all well aware of those resources that are out there. And again, we can talk about that in a little bit. I think Allison Harvey and the chamber already pushed this out, but the county released some template documents for their worksite specific plans to really assist those smaller business owners who maybe don't know how to do a risk assessment or even understand the challenges with putting together this worksite specific plan, which again is a requirement of many of the different business sectors. So we can talk about that as well, but they're trying to provide additional resources. And then lastly, the one thing I just wanted to hit on that the local leaders talked with the health officer today that we can talk as well is a lot of the businesses that have reopened are doing a rock star job at following the requirements. But there's a lot of discussion about what do customers need to do and how do we, have some level of social following of the rules, if you will, to make sure people are not only following requirements of the reopenings, but also, what's the difference between a recommendation and a requirement. So, we can get into some of that discussion if we want today, but a lot of discussion about not just business owners, but really on customers and how do we help our residents, feel safe out there. So that's just a quick update on what we went through. Matt, looks like you, Councilmember Spokley, have a quick question for me.
Only because I've had a few constituents reach out to me. I'm pretty clear that these openings and where we're at in this process are all voluntary. But I've got some folks who have reached out to me who have kids that are supposed to be taking like MCAT tests and they're not opening. Do we have any sense of what obligation may be there for private businesses? These are private testing facilities that test kids, but these are important for a lot of kids that are moving on to medical school in particular. And they're now looking to go out of state to take these tests. Has that ever come up as far as any sort of requirement for some of these facilities to open up, or is it still purely just a volunteer basis? I think that's where we're at, but I thought I would ask the question.
Yeah, that's a good one. No, we haven't had those discussions. I can definitely bring it up because you're right. There are certain things that are requirements. A lot of the government requirements have been waived or extended. Specifically, we've talked about the business openings. It is focused on voluntary and the fact that, the state sets mandates, the county gives some recommendations, but at the end of the day, the local businesses can add on to those additional requirements. So I know that doesn't answer your specific question about reopening. I do think it leaves it a little bit up to, up to each business to decide that. But I'll follow up because I think it's a good point of some of those required testing and whatnot.
I think on top of the frustration is that these folks have paid, some of which have paid a long time ago for these testing, slots, and now they're being told that they're closed. And while the county, and these are tests that were going to happen in Roseville, the county is opening things up, these particular businesses, and it's, again, based on the voluntary basis, it's their prerogative, but they're saying no and leaving customers in the lurch.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I had heard, and not confirming this, but I'd heard that some of the colleges were waiving SAT requirements for a set period of time. So not sure on the MCAT, but I can definitely raise that with the health officer I'm not sure if there's any other specific items in Auburn that have besides, graduate level or type of business degrees or other specialty degrees that would require that, but that's a good question.
Hey, Matt, this is Rob. In those testing sites, because I obviously don't have a kid that's going to the medical school level, but do you know how many people are usually in there? Because they might actually be restricted under the public gathering, restriction that's kind of still in place. Because I know, okay, yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, Rob. I know that I've actually been in some of these testing facilities throughout my professional career, and I know that they used to stack us up pretty closely. And I get that they would have to reduce the volume of students that they test. My understanding in the conversations I've had with a couple of folks is they're just not opening. And again, I get it. It's their right. They're a private business who are doing these kind of graduate level testing procedures. But yeah, they certainly would have the same abilities that a restaurants would have to every other, or provide social distance, separations, all those things. So just curious. I'm not sure. I'm not advocating that we force private businesses to open when they're not ready to open, but it's been asked to me on a couple of different occasions.
I wonder
Real quick, I just went to Pearson VUE, which is one of the larger third-party testing sites, and it looks like they are open particularly, and they've got some restrictions, including requiring the usage of a face covering. So it's a good point, but we'll have to maybe do a little more research on this. Rob, did I cut you off though?
Oh, no. I was just going to ask if we know of any of those sites that are open in any of the other counties, because sometimes that can, that was what I was really interested in with Sac County when they were talking about, trying to open the small gyms, and which was surprising to me because they're clearly a stage 3. And I had that conversation with some of the folks at the county about, well, if they get a variance on that, then everyone should. And then I guess the governor kicked back on them and they had to pull it out of their attestation. So I'm just curious if this particular business type has, is not specifically forbidden, then I would be surprised if there weren't some sites open for sure.
Any other items before we move to the next item on the agenda? Okay, seeing none. The next item here is city actions and services. So I'll turn it over to our city manager, Bob Richardson.
Well, as we've discussed, I think at each of these meetings previously, the city's been talking with the business associations, seeing what kind of things that they would want to have implemented once things started to open up. One of the primary issues was outdoor dining. As you know, last night, Jordan there and I and a few other folks, we put together the hay bale outdoor seating area. Under the new guidelines, restaurants can expand their outdoor seating and alcohol serving areas as long as they comply with whatever requirements the city puts forth. So we've been working together on that. Hopefully tonight will be the kickoff for that facility. I think we looked at hay bales because of the lack of expense there, the level of flexibility that we have. Also, it will be a shared facility by all the restaurants in Old Town. As you'll see when you drive by, there's now a cork board up on a post there that will have all the restaurant menus hanging, and people can go take a look at what they want, walk over, order. Some of the restaurants will actually deliver the food out to individuals out there. Others will just have to come back on in and carry out. So that's set up. We'll see how it goes. I think in all these efforts, we're taking it one step at a time. We're working as a group and as a team, trying to solve issues as it comes up. We tried to structure the hay bales, and Jordan, you feel free to jump in when you want. but we try to structure the hay bales to keep people 6 feet apart. If that doesn't work, we will adjust them, remove some hay bales, put others in as need be. We'll just keep an eye on it and see how it goes, especially over this first weekend. Also, we have signage there requesting that people maintain all social distancing. We also have places to wash your hands, and the bales will be removed in 2 weeks. So it'll be kind of a 2-week experimental program. We can reassess it from there. I've also allowed sidewalk seating in Old Town in a couple of locations that have requested it. They are restaurants. If the sidewalk area is safe for outdoor dining and still maintains ADA accessibility, I've allowed that on a temporary basis as well. So you'll see a few of those have already gone up, and I think you'll see a few more over the next week or so. On top of that, we've given permission for Tap and Vine and Ale House to provide outdoor music on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights moving forward. This is going to be very much of a experimental program. It's important to note that here, the musicians are there to provide street ambiance and not a concert. If they start congregating people, we'll have to shut them down. And the business owners are acutely aware of that. Entertainment should only be using acoustic instruments, although amplifiers can be used if they're used in moderation. No more than 3 musicians can be in a group. This weekend, both sites will only have a single musician. In Old Town, the musician will be playing in front of the Century 21 business. In downtown, it will be the little patio area just below the clock tower. Music can be played between 5 and 10 p.m. It's looking like right now it's going to be played between 5:30 and 8 or 8:30. A barrier will be placed around the entertainer at the clock tower. In both sites, there will be signage saying no congregating and maintaining social distancing. We've asked the police department to also keep an eye out. If we do see congregation going on, they will be breaking it up. They will also be reporting to me each Monday, letting me know if we're having a problem or not. Again, the onus is on the business owner, but we're going to provide the backup to make sure that this does not spark into something that we don't want to see. But they can help create a more pleasing, just general environment for the business areas. We met with some folks from the downtown district today who now would like to start adding additional amenities like Old Town is. So I'm sure by next week we'll have a much clearer view of what they would like, and possibly we'll have those implemented as well. I don't know, Jordan, Addison, do you guys have anything you want to add in there?
No, I mean, Bob, I think you covered it. I think the idea is just to create some thoughtful avenues for people to sit who may otherwise be uncomfortable inside. As far as social distancing of the hay bales, as you said, we've separated them as best we can, and keeping in mind that families are going to be gathering the same way they would within our establishments as well. So we'll just do what we can, obviously, to help with the signage, and then with you guys, the help of the police. It's going to be real difficult, I think, for the restaurants to control that side. So I would say signage, and if it is to get out of hand, I wouldn't expect that Lisa is going to send someone out from the ale house. I think that's something that probably we would want help on with a police, to help if that is needed. I don't foresee it being a big problem. I think people are going to handle it well, and I think it's going to work out really well.
Feedback's been great so far.
Hey, Bob, quick question on the musician in downtown. That area I know that you're talking about is got some seating around it and stuff. I mean, when you say no congregating, is that basically going to mean nobody stops, or is it you can stop in your family unit as long as you're 6 feet away from others? Like, what kind of
What we don't want is to create a long-standing group of people. That is just to be for general ambiance, that you are strolling by and you keep going. And in that case, in that particular case, Addison is very, very aware of that and is going to be monitoring that himself.
Yeah.
So, but we want to just keep people going. If a couple of folks sit on a park bench, fine. But we can't have a stalled, congested area on the sidewalks.
Right. So maybe some signage will probably be around stating that. Yeah.
Bob, anything else to report?
I think those are the major actions we took this week.
Okay, anybody have any additional questions for the city manager? Okay, not seeing any. Go ahead and move on to stage 3 business reopening planning. So I mentioned at the top, sorry, Amy, can you add so I can screen share? It's not allowing me, but I wanted to share the documents that the county had put together related to this program called Ready, Set, Prep, specifically related to the businesses that are in the stage 3. That could be hairstylists, barbers, other cosmetology related. There we go. Thank you, Amy. And there's a lot, what they're really focusing on is a very similar, hopefully you can all see those documents there. Just another checklist. Now, these aren't, specific guidelines. This has not yet really been mapped out or approved. Again, stage 3 is not yet approved. But what the county economic development program is really focused on is, looking at the trend of everything the governor has done as far as the official guidelines have really kind of followed a template and a model. So it uses very similar practices, planning elements, training. So I'm going to just kind of go through this fast. But you can see here's the worksite specific plan. Here's the employee training that's required, measures and screening, cleaning and disinfecting protocols, physical distancing guidelines, and then a little bit more information on industry protocols. So all this is available on the Reopen Placer, but I would definitely encourage the business associations to share this. Obviously, the cosmetology world and the barbers have really been pretty loud about asking for them to be added to the variants, and I know that we continue to advocate for it. I think I mentioned last week, how is it really safe for for all the backroom haircutting that's going on right now in this black market that we've created, but this at least gets hair and nail salons, even fitness centers, kind of starting to do that planning so that when the reopening does occur, which usually is not occurring with a lot of heads up, at least those businesses are ahead of the game as far as the planning. So I can share those documents, but just wanted to start the conversation, and I'll start with Councilwoman Mackey.
Thank you, Mayor Berlant. So when they say stage 3, is there any indication, stage 3, I'm sorry, is it the June 1st? Is it June 7th, 14th, the last week in June? Do they give you any indication of when that might start?
No, the health officer and the county have been very good about making it clear that it's the state's decision and that they are learning pretty much right before we are learning. However, the thing that I have been vocal about is that specifically our health officer has an opportunity for direct advocacy, for direct planning. Now, again, from her perspective, obviously she's very focused on the medical portion of this, the safety portion, the science portion of this as well. But she has the avenues to keep us informed. But I think the discussion that I think is important for us here is that there's now what I'm kind of hearing, and again, I'm only hearing rumors and nothing official, but that it's kind of likely that some of these stage 3 businesses that we're talking about will likely be added into maybe a second level of county variance, meaning that
Right.
to move into it once the state and these businesses can self-attest that they are going to do it. The governor indicated maybe a week ago that the state would move to stage 3 together, but I think he's starting to indicate more and more, and rightfully so, that there'll be more local control. So to answer your question, I haven't heard any specific dates, but I think that the idea of making sure that we're getting them ready now so that when it happens, they can hopefully turn the switch on as quickly as possible.
Well, the county was able to get special permission to let the restaurants and things open earlier in phase 2. So I'm not understanding why they're not working on the phase 3 businesses, getting special permission to let them open sooner as well. I don't understand that.
No, it's a good point, and like I said, I think we need to kind of continue to push for that. The state came in and said, we're now going to create this variance, process. And so the county then took advantage of putting together based on those guidelines, where from what I can gather, and, again, I'm just reporting secondhand information that I get from them. But from what I gather is they've been given no preparation or guidance of when that will happen. So I think it falls back on us, and especially them, to continue to advocate to have, one, local control, but two, to have a better idea of when this is going to happen so that we can, keep people informed of when they need to, be ready and have the ability, I guess, to go.
So that also brings me to one other question. Sorry.
Okay.
I asked you in an email because people have asked this question of me. We're supposed to be sheltering in place still, because that hasn't been lifted, but we can go out to restaurants with our families and we can't go to grocery stores as long as we are social distancing ourselves. We can go to these places, but other than that, we should be sheltering in place. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think there's a number of other items, including outdoor recreation,
Right.
that are part of kind of the exemption. Yes, the state still has a statewide shelter in place, a stay-at-home order. There is no county order; it's just a state order. But there are, now a growing list of exceptions and businesses that are allowed to be open, and then places for people to go and do goods and services and action. So people are still able to go out and recreate. People can still go and dine, but your non-essential travel is still banned. And so if it's not essential, and again, this word essential is kind of, I think, expanding, rightfully so. But yes, the shelter in place is still in effect.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, Cheryl, I'll just let you know, I mean, the way we've kind of interpreted it, and I think the way it's being kind of interpreted with the opening of, some of the state parks, Confluence is back with parking, is I think people can feel pretty confident that you can move about the county, right? So that's kind of where we're sort of in our industry, this first phase, sort of kind of like parking it. Like we feel like it's okay to actually market, that we're opening in county. I mean, technically, you could probably get what you need, by staying in county. So I think in the beginning, that's kind of probably be, until that's lifted, the litmus that we're willing to live with in the, in the travel space. So, and I do think that you're right. I think there's been a lot of verbiage coming out of the governor's office around this June 1, this, with the salons and whatnot. So, I mean, what we're finding, I think what all you are finding is as well, is this thing, one day it's months out and 3 days later it's happening, so short of a big, of this thing that happened yesterday with the 8 cases becoming a trend, I feel like things are going to be moving very swiftly as far as that opening up piece.
Thank you, Rob.
Any other questions for the city manager? Or excuse me, any other discussion? Sorry, we moved on to the next item. Any other discussions on kind of the stage 3 reopening? Again, I think it's, and I realize too, there are a number of salons and barbershops and fitness centers that have reopened against the state orders. But at least I think our message and our discussion here needs to really be about making sure that those that are following the rules or those that are not, are taking proper precautions, because I think that's the key in all of this is the social distancing, the cleaning, again, the 5 things that are in that toolkit. And so I would just ask, that our business associations continue to try to help, provide that information to, to the prospective stage 3 types of businesses. And my guess is if we can continue to do a good job and kind of slowly, do good at each of these openings, as bad as that sounds, I think we'll start to see more and more of the restrictions being lifted. And there's a lot of people who don't like that theory of, we shouldn't have to ask permission for the state to allow us to do that. But I think that's the reality of where we're at the moment. And I know there's been a lot of emails that the council has gotten, and I would assume the business associations as well, just saying, let's make ourselves a sanctuary city. Let's just do it. And I think in reality, the best course needs to continue to be, as Placer County has been one of the leading counties in reopening, is we got to plan, we have to prepare, we have to show that we can do it, and then more reopenings will occur, and it will occur faster than maybe initially indicated by the governor.
Yeah. Oh, and I saw you, Cheryl. I wanted to address one other thing that you had asked earlier. I do think the county is aggressively going to be lobbying the state for more exceptions. I think Tuesday's special meeting was probably going to be worth tuning into on that front. I know I got an email today that the county has decided not to go forward with the with the lifting of the emergency, but I do think they also are going to, I think at the same time, they've decided that they're going to keep the pressure on. So I think you'll see them lobbying as hard or harder than they have for more stage 3, phase 3 businesses to be open.
And I don't want to speak for the county, but what I kind of picked up from Chairwoman Supervisor Bonnie Gore was they're not going to, give the middle finger to the state, but that they are really trying to put pressure to get more local control for these things. So again, I can't confirm for her, but that's the feeling I got from her. So Cheryl, did you have another question?
Yeah, you made comment about the new cases in the county in South Placer. But do you have any indication, because I know that my daughter-in-law's grandmother was brought back from sleep train. She was diagnosed, or she was one of the people in the nursing home that had been exposed to COVID-19 and showed that she had been exposed when they gave her the test, but she never showed any symptoms. And now she's back home at the Auburn Ravine Terrace. Did they bring them all back? And how many of that group do you know? Did any of them ever show any symptoms? Because I know that Tina's grandmother never showed symptoms.
So I personally know 2 family members, and they're in the same exact situation that you referenced. They tested positive. They were transported to Sleep Train Arena. They never showed any additional symptoms, and have since cleared and been able to return back to their homes. One thing too that I would just mention, if you haven't visited the county's stats page, they've added some additional features to it. I'll just share it real quick, just since we have the technology to do so. But on here, they actually have added a whole section of, if you look onto the left, 184 confirmed cases. They now have the recovered section. So you can see 184 of those people tested positive, but 161 of them have recovered fully. They've also given an updated map feature that shows exactly where these residents that had COVID-19, what zip code they tested positive in. So I think this helps us paint a better picture. I think at the end of the day, the health officer wasn't worried about the increase, but wants to make sure that that was a blip on the radar and not just a trend that we will continue to see.
So Daniel, then my question is, because I can't tell by this chart that I've looked at several times, if you are you considered, if you test positive, are you considered a case?
Yes.
Even if you don't show any symptoms, you're considered a case if you test positive. So naturally, you've recovered after the 2-week quarantine period. So it's really doesn't tell the whole story, is my complaint about this, because just because you've tested positive doesn't necessarily mean you ever even had it or were sick with it. So I'd like to know how many people recovered from actually being sick. If we've only had 184 cases recovered, boy, that played havoc with our hospitals in this region, because
And
some
one
of
thing
them
that
never went to the hospital.
And one of the things the health officer did stress too is that our health professionals, the hospital capacity, the safety equipment is plenty. And so even though
Right.
we had 8 more cases, you're right, we don't know the level of symptoms those 8 people had. It's hard to see, and maybe your screens are different, but for on the left-hand side shows the number of patients that are in the hospital, and there are 4, none in the ICU. And so
Right.
you can take that in as another factor, but you're right. I mean, your point is valid that, positive doesn't necessarily mean symptoms, and symptoms don't necessarily, mean that, you are going to die. I mean, so I think they're doing a better job of providing data, but I think your point is right on that you look at overall the 100 and almost 400,000 people that live in Placer County, we're still talking about a small percentage, and our capacity in our health care is still there. And that doesn't mean that we should go run out and, not follow the warnings. It just means that there needs to be better balance in all this. But I think your point is 100% valid that, a lot of people were kind of up in arms about poor Auburn Ravine, but I don't know your experience, but the families I talked to were incredibly grateful with the care at Auburn Ravine and how quickly they were, isolated, provided treatment, and then allowed to return back to normalcy,
Yeah.
Even though they tested positive.
No, we were incredibly grateful too, that she was able to go there and be under quarantine and be safe and not be around any, to be monitored safely. That was wonderful. But my point was not so much, I'm not complaining about the care at all. I'm just saying that here we have 100 and so many cases that some just haven't shown any symptoms. And we put tens of thousands of people out of business, and we're talking about getting them back into businesses stage 3. Well, many of them won't be here anymore. And there's a lot of restaurants that have already failed. And so I just think it's been overdone, and it's time to move forward, and our county needs to move forward faster than a meeting next Tuesday. They need to move. I'm just saying this on screen, so it's on record. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, so there was one additional death yesterday, and I believe it was from the care facility, just as a point of order. So, potentially there were some sick, but the point's well taken. I mean, it's hard to know from those raw numbers, who showed symptoms or not, and to what degree, for sure.
No, appreciate that clarification and addition.
Well, I just want to also say that my daughter-in-law's grandmother is 93 years old, so never showed any symptoms but tested positive. So yeah,
Well, and that's great to hear.
I'm staying home. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, but I'm so frustrated for the people I know that are losing their businesses. That's what I'm concerned about.
No question, Cheryl. I mean, that is the thing. I mean, I'm still working. My wife's still working. So, our impacts are way different than people that have their business. There's just no question at all. And again, I do believe, that things are trending the right way and things are going to move faster than we think. And part of it is due to the fact that a lot of people up in these areas are really pushing for it. So I think they're being heard, but there also is a large amount of people in county across the country who are still worried. So that's why it's so important to have the safety measures, to put safety first. I mean, one of the things that we're telling folks is that, especially if there's going to be more consumer confidence the more they feel safe in your establishment. And I think the winners are going to be the ones that really embrace that. And as people that aren't as worried about it, like myself, you know, I'm not going to be offended or not offended by what you do at your business. But when I go home and talk to my wife, she's much more skeptical, and she's going to want to be, you know, she's going to want to know that the place is taking real precautions, you know. So I think people should lean into it. Businesses should, because I think it's a win for them. I think in the end, I go home, say, hey, that's a great experience down there. They've got protocols. It's all, you know, we can sit down and have dinner and not be worried. You know, if we can convey that message, then the people that are sitting there very worried are going to be more apt to start letting down and expanding their bubble, as it were. So again, I'm all for opening, and I'm all for doing it super safely, and you know, let's get us going again.
I appreciate that, Rob. Allison, Jordan, any comments, questions, thoughts on the stage 3 businesses from either of you?
Just from my perspective, obviously I've spoken with a lot of people as well in my district in the phase 3 side. Yeah, I think we're at a point where it feels so difficult for these phase 3 businesses to say you're non-essential and that you can't do things safely, but we are allowed as a restaurant to safely do. It's getting to a point where I think it doesn't make sense to people, consumers as well. So I absolutely would echo what Cheryl's saying, that it's time to move forward with phase 3. And I think Tuesday is too late. I think that the soups needed to step up and push for the possibility. And I know, Daniel, as you're saying, Mayor Berlant,
Daniel's fine as well.
I know what you're saying as far as the governor needs to allow for that phase 3 variance, which I understand entirely. But the more we push, obviously, the better. It's time to start pushing, I think, for that phase as well.
Appreciate that. Allison?
I'll just echo the same sentiment. I'm not going to belabor it, but we've just seen a lot of complaints about why are, you know, some businesses in stage 2 and some in stage 3, especially when a lot of stage 3 businesses and, you know, specifically salons and barbershops have a lot of training in sanitizing their workspace and making sure that they have clean workspaces from their licensing requirements before. And so I know that there's a lot of frustration there. I agree with you, Mayor Berlant, that there will probably be, and I've already noted that there are some salons that are opening, and they will take the punches as they come, they've said. So we need to, again, I agree, let's put some pressure on our state. Let's continue the pressure on our state to allow these businesses to open.
Well, and the last thing on that front is a lot of them are open already. So you've got this dichotomy happening of those that are staying, you know, abiding by the state rule, who are losing customers, to those that aren't. And, you know, at some point, you know, people need to acknowledge the reality on the ground. And to me, that's the issue, is like, I mean, there's a point where you have to, you know, the term we use is you have to go rogue. If the first salon down the street is open and your customers are going there, I mean, what do you got left to do? And so I think that message alone, you know, especially in a world that we live in where the enforcement piece is much more soft, I would say, other than, you know, if you serve alcohol in the ABC, I guess they've been pretty aggressive. But in this space, you know, I think there just needs to be an acknowledgement to the reality on the ground. That's what I would say on that.
Well, and I will just add real quickly, if you'll allow me. The Cosmetology Board has been indicating, which is a state-run entity, just much like ABC, if you don't follow the rules, we will take your license. And I think that is a very real fear for some salon owners. So they're in this balancing act of continue to run my business and know that I might have some repercussions. What are those really going to be? And that hasn't really been announced, but there has definitely been a very real threat of them losing their license, having a $1,000 fine, and losing their license for up to 3 years. And so they're trying to balance this and figure out what what to do. So instead of them going rogue, I just hope that our county can allow them to run, lawfully.
And
Amen.
I guess my one suggestion too on that for both of you is, I would hope that these guidance documents and these planning documents the county has put together, those that are not following the statewide order, while the city is not in the enforcement business of this, I would definitely hope that they are following those guidance documents as if those are the requirements, so that they can keep their employees and their customers safe, regardless of if they are breaking a state restriction. So appreciate that. Good discussion here. Just gonna move on to, if there's nothing else on stage 3, move on to the next item. And Bob talked a lot about this in his report, but I put outdoor dining on here. It looks like Addison had to go, and I know Bob, you talked about downtown was expanding that, but I just wanted to at least give the opportunity for the business associations, the chamber, or Visit Placer. Is there any questions or issues you guys want to raise? I know the Old Town item is only in the first less than 24 hours of implementing it, but anything we need to be aware of or that we need to be doing faster related to outdoor dining? Yeah, Cheryl, go ahead.
I have a question about Herschel Young Park. Are you allowing outdoor dining down there, Jordan? I know there was some uproar about it a few years ago.
Yeah, no, we're not. That as all of you probably know the history there.
Yeah.
We're being very cautious with that. I think it would be a bummer, especially for like the Bistro 103 people who fought that for so long to
Right.
now have seating because of obviously extenuating circumstances. Yet it makes more sense for us, and especially with the Type 58, which is the ABC students, which they're allowing for service in the front of our businesses. It really needs to be in front of the business is kind of the stipulation they have. There are some circumstances where we can drink around the business. That's more of a loose construct, but we're not going to take any chances with that. And I think it makes sense just to say, put a couple tables thoughtfully in front of the businesses, and let's not go to the Herschel Young side.
Thank you, Jordan.
So I have one question for the council and Bob, honestly. Is there any thoughts or have you guys started discussions awfully early? What's happening in Old Town obviously is a temporary kind of situation to try to get things going, but do you anticipate there will be any sort of long-term, more permanent talk about, how you might want to configure some of those areas to be more open, to allow more, outdoor dining, like you see in some of these real quote walkable communities. I'm just curious about that because I do foresee that for a fairly long time, the ability to have some outdoor is going to, really be important. It feels like.
I think it's something that it has always been discussed, and here we have a beautiful little town, but designed based on probably horse trails, a couple hundred years ago. So where the outdoor dining is today, I can easily see that being a quasi-permanent opportunity in the future. What we do have to always work on and calculate, and that's why Jordan and I had to sit down and go through it and really think it through. We have delivery trucks that need to park in that location. And as much as we try to get most deliveries done early in the morning, we don't have control over a lot of those. And so we're always balancing great outdoor opportunities for people to congregate and mingle. But at the same time, we're dealing with some of the practicalities of running businesses down there. And so we always are going to have that blend and balance. I think it will continue to be like that. But I also see that we could have much more frequent outdoor dining than we have traditionally done.
Yeah, if I could speak to that real quick, Bob, my dream would be for a golden triangle, for instance, as we call it anyways, kind of in the center of that triangle, where we could have maybe a statue with some beautiful seating around it. There's definitely ways, I think, to solve some of these issues and be more thoughtful with the outdoor seating opportunities. And I think it's something that yes, Matt, we need to pursue quickly, because we are in this new state of outdoor being a safer, we'll say people feel safer, obviously, place right now.
So I think you,
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Matt. Can't read my lips.
yeah, I did. So I want to make sure I'm clear. Herschel Young Park, I mean, we're trying to figure out places temporarily to open up outdoor dining. Is Herschel Young Park not one of those opportunities?
I just asked that question.
It is not. And
Why?
I think what we were looking at was to provide opportunities that all the restaurants could comfortably share in. That, and just the angst that has been surrounding that little park for so many years. I think we found a lot of other ways in which to provide for good seating. In fact, on the sidewalk out front, there will be 2 seats, two tops actually, coming out here in the next week. So there will be additional outdoor dining in that corner of Old Town. But at this point in time, we felt comfortable with, let's create an outdoor dining area that can be shared by all the restaurants, and something that they can all work with together, instead of having the perceived almost favoritism that has plagued that little park in the past.
Well, I guess my comments are that yes to all of the opportunities for outdoor dining. We've got a pocket park. It happens to be next to a you know, the annex, but why wouldn't we allow folks? I mean, how are you going to enforce that? How are you going to say that you can go to the hay bales, you know, out in the triangle, but you can't sit down and enjoy your meal that you got from wherever? I mean, it could have been from the annex, but it also could have been from the ale house, could have been from Old Town Pizza, it could have been from Jordan's establishment, it could have been from anywhere.
No.
I guess I'm not understanding why we would disallow that.
All that is occurring today. People do go in there, eat their lunches. It happens all the time. We have no concern with that whatsoever. What we've always tried to stray away from is having a single entity seemingly provide the majority of the service to that location. So anybody can pick up food to go from any location in Old Town or even downtown, go to that park and have a great lunch. Absolutely can happen today. We just don't want it seemingly being controlled by one business.
And I'm completely in agreement with that. I thought I heard that we were disallowing the temporary dining in the park, and maybe I misheard that, but
No, sir. It's today. You can do it like any other day.
Yeah, I think there's 2 tables and 2 benches, if I'm not mistaken, and then plenty of kind of sidewalky-ish, it goes at an angle, but other places that you could sit if you wanted.
yeah, I again, my 2 cents is any public space that the city has any influence over, that we can open up on the interim in this emergency setting to allow for our restaurateurs and folks to utilize. I think we need to do it. And it sounds like we are.
Yep, agreed, Matt. I'm with you. And yeah, we are. We're definitely utilizing what we can.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything on outdoor dining?
I'm sorry, I just got here. I'll catch up later.
No problem. We're
Anyway,
just having a discussion about outdoor dining. Bob had already kind of given an overview of some of the efforts, underway.
okay, and I'm sure you've heard pros and cons for the bales I've been hearing. So I won't have you repeat any of that.
Well, if you want to share your thoughts, that's fine.
It's not my thoughts. I'll just share from a number of people are concerned about just I haven't been there, so I can't really speak to it, but people have indicated to me that they're concerned about, I guess a lot of people were in very close proximity with each other. There wasn't social distancing, and not that many people were wearing masks. and that's in regard to the hay bales. And I wasn't aware that we were doing that until I think, Daniel, you might have given us a heads up, but I think I found out just a little bit before that. So anyway, there's probably, I missed out a lot. There's probably a lot of pros and cons. So I don't know what you decided.
I would speak to that real quick. Hi, Sandy. That, yeah, there's pros and cons, obviously, to everything that we do. It's pretty difficult to wear a mask when you're trying to eat and drink, would be one of the things I would say. Number two, there's absolutely no way that people know which family groups, what groups are family groups and what are not. So people who are going to be naysayers are going to be naysayers no matter what happens. So that's the one thing I've noticed. The less we say, I think, is almost better. And I think we need to, at this point, start to move forward with some of these things, doing everything we can to make it safe, to separate when we can, put up signage, all that. But it's really impossible to please everyone in these.
And I would just add too to that, Jordan, it's just another option. Some people may want to do in dining, but others don't feel comfortable, so they want to do outdoor dining. Some, and there are plenty of people who don't want to do go out and do it. And that's where the delivery and the curbside pickup is still a really good option. And I know Bob and others, have had some discussions about concerns some of the restaurant owners have had related to expanded outdoor dining because they do rely on delivery service. And so I think it's all a balance. And at least from my perspective and my 2 cents, Sandy, the comments that people have made to you are very valid. But I think it's an option for people depending on their, what they deem as being safe. And one thing I would just stress again from the health officer is wearing a face covering is recommended when you're outside, and you cannot provide 6 foot distance. So there is not a recommendation to wear a face covering at all times. It's really just when you can't have that social distancing. But it is a requirement for certain professions like servers and others. So I just want to stress that too. But some people aren't comfortable with that. And I think that that's fine as well. But that's where there are some delivery and curbside pickup. So you don't have to be around anybody if you aren't comfortable with it.
Oh, yeah, I understand that. And I appreciate that. And I guess what some people have indicated is that it's great to have outdoor opportunities, but maybe we should there could be a way where you can encourage the distancing a little bit. Like I just got back from court, and so in the courtroom they have marked off several chairs, so everyone has to sit for kind of, at least, well, it's not quite 6 feet, but, relatively further apart than you would if you're right next to each other. And I'm not sure, that's what I heard, is that the hay bales are situated such that it kind of encourages crowding. But, again, I'm just relaying, I'm not formulating an opinion, but I'm just relaying what several people have communicated to me. So
Yeah, appreciate that. Go ahead, Matt.
So it's highly likely my dog's going to start barking as I'm talking here. So I apologize if he does. I got a comment on the separation thing because my wife and I heard that Old Town was opening, and we immediately snuck out and had lunch in Old Town. The establishment we went to was doing a very good job with every other booth was closed, and my wife took a picture and posted on Facebook, and the backlash was ridiculous because on social media you can't realize separation, you can't understand that the employees all have PPE, clear PPE masks. They just looked at it and thought that, oh my God, how can you be okay with this? And she pulled the post down. So I guess the message to our restaurateurs and our businesses in town, keep doing what you're doing. For the rest of us who want to post stuff and say, hey, this is all great, we've learned in my family, we've learned our lesson. I felt very safe having lunch. I was very grateful to be able to go out and patronize a restaurateur in town. And I was very disappointed in the backlash that we got when we were trying to celebrate how nice it was to be back to some normalcy. So I guess, you know, the opinions of some are not certainly the opinions of all, and there are folks who think we should, and I own a business. I've got partners who think that we should shut down until who knows when, but we're working on safe, you know, kind of re-employment of our employees back in our offices. And there's such a varying opinion of how quickly or how fast that should happen and what it should look like. I guess Daniel or Mayor Berlant, we're following the guidelines. We're doing the right things. Let's get this going. Let's get our businesses back, entertaining our constituents, me, my wife, our family. Now, I mean, the social media folks that are out there, whatever, and we can't curl back because we get all this backlash from the folks who think it's happening too fast. If I'm eating a dinner, I can't have a face mask on, or if I'm eating a lunch, I can't have a face mask on. But I've got employees in this establishment who have PPE on, and I feel completely safe. Gloves, everything. They're wiping down tables. They're doing the whole 9 yards. So go try it out. Go see what you think when you're there in person, and then comment. And I'm speaking only to the folks who commented on Facebook, who thought it was horrible that we were okay with the idea of reopening our economy. And I guess to finish, yes, I'm okay. Let's reopen our economy. Let's do it safely. Let's get this going.
No, appreciate that, Matt. I share those sentiments. And I think, you know, as I hit on at the beginning, the county, one of the things they're really going to focus on is additional kind of public education and awareness of what are the requirements versus what are the recommendations, and making sure people, you know, are a little more educated as a customer, what you should expect, so that you're not expecting everybody to be, you know, masked up, but rather understanding that there are other precautions that you can take, and that it's not just a one size fits all. So I appreciate that. Moving on though, anything else, the last items on outdoor dining, Rob? Go ahead.
Well, I was just this has been I've been banging this drum for a few days, but one of the things that I saw the Shasta County Health Officer, and Shasta is every bit as libertarian as we are. And she recommended that businesses have their employees tested every couple of weeks. And it got me to thinking about testing and the importance of being more widespread, because one of the criticisms that we have is, oh, you know, these counties are opening too soon, but they have inadequate testing. And it turns out right now that in Placer County, we have capability to test. And to Cheryl's point about asymptomatic people, like anyone can go get a test. So my entire family did this week. My wife, my daughter, my son, and I. Super easy to do it. I think, again, that's something that if I was a business and I had my employees do that, and then I could post a sign that said my employees are tested every 2 weeks, and you know, getting back to that level of confidence. So I'm asking people to test right now. If you're out and about and doing physical stuff, I think it's like the easiest public service you can do in these times right now. You get to add data, you know, on the spreadsheet that the county has. Every negative test gets put up there. You know, again, it's kind of like giving blood to me. Like, it's one of the great easy public services that people can do. So, and I heard on a call yesterday that the Kings Beach site could get shut down because they're only testing about 20 a day, and they have the capacity for 130. And I've kind of pushed on the county, like, what's the policy? Are we asking I'm just saying it as a city, encouraging people to take the test. It's free, and it's doable is, I think, another smart business strategy is what I would say on that. And I'm a negative.
Rob, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for letting us know. We'll move on to our next item, and this is our report. So we'll start with the Auburn Chamber of Commerce. Allison, any updates or any needs that you have from you and your members?
Yeah, I'll just give a quick update. We are continuing on with our seminar series. So our next seminar will be Wednesday, May the 27th at noon. It will be virtual. Anybody who would like to attend can go to auburnchamber.net/COVID-19, find out all the seminar information and register there. This seminar will be with Richard Hall, a local attorney at Bottom Line Lawyers, and he will be talking about different options for business owners if they're having difficulty money issues. So we'll talk about crowdfunding and grant programs, and then bankruptcy if that's an option that they need to explore. The seminar after that is tentatively set for 2 weeks following and should be about mental health. That's what we have, that's what we're trying to get together. So, you know, this time is incredibly difficult, especially for those business owners whose businesses aren't running as they used to be, and money is an issue, and taking care of your safety and that of your family and having your kids at home, all of that is a great stress on your mental health. So we want to bring in some professionals to talk about what people can do to work on their mental health and give them some tools and tips. We're trying to work with the business associations, and we've already kind of started in getting a message up on our billboard. We have some availability on the Chamber's billboard. So I've contacted each of the business associations, and we're all trying to work together to do a unified message. All of the business associations and the Chamber will put up one message showing that we are unified in trying to get our businesses supported and open. And that's something that we're working on right now. It can go up as soon as we can get it together. And then we're just continuing to push those marketing tools. That's what we like to call them, the marketing tools that the county is putting up on their website as to how businesses can open responsibly. And to that note, I just kind of wanted to read a message that real quickly that I saw on Facebook. And it's from a local business owner. And she's talking about an experience she had going to a local business, and it was a eatery, and she just wanted to go in and grab a snack. And she noticed that the people around her weren't wearing masks, and she kind of thought, well, that is what it is. But then she looked around and it says, I saw one really large community table where people were coming and going, no one wiping down or cleaning. Then I see the coworkers behind the counter all very close together, stepping over each other, and not one of them wearing masks or gloves. And as I thought more about what I was seeing, I got upset and left. Not because I'm afraid, because I am someone that just spent the last week navigating all of the rules and writing up protocols for my own family's business, and going every extra length to make sure that every customer that comes in knows that we care whether they do or not. And that's when it hit me. I felt like this business did not care about me. And as much as I wanted that food, I couldn't give them my business any longer. And I think that's a really good testament to what we're trying to tell our businesses. Not everyone's going to care enough to put on a mask, or doesn't care about maybe the concerns that are surrounding wearing a mask, or they're not so concerned about catching COVID-19. But when you go into an establishment that isn't following the rules and protocols, it may be for a completely different reason that they feel that that business doesn't care about them. And so as business owners, we're trying to tell our business owners, as business owners, you can really get a lot of business. It's a customer confidence aspect, and really trying to make sure that they understand that even if you don't necessarily think you need the mask, your customers might, and it's going to show your customers that you care about them. So that's our big push in the coming weeks, is just to give those tools to the businesses and see that perspective.
Yeah, appreciate that, and appreciate the story, because I think it is a good reminder as we talk about, some of this is going to start to be customer loyalty driven as far as what precautions are taking. So Allison, thank you. Any questions for the Chamber of Commerce from anybody else? Okay, thank you again, Allison. We'll move on to our business associations, and Jordan, you are it today. We had Allison for a little bit, but anything going on with OTBA or any needs or issues that you'd like to flag?
No, nothing more than what I've pretty much already stated. We were just trying to communicate with our district more. We have the downtown website is built now through Toby, and so we are communicating sort of together, which I spoke about a couple weeks ago. We're excited about that. So our communication's getting more. And we're excited to work with Allison and the chamber to get the billboard in use to show our unity. That's my goal going forward, is for the city to show unity in all of our different districts and associations. So it's happening more. There's definitely we're coming up with some creative ways to get after new and innovative businesses, and that's what we're doing. So yeah, just continue to communicate as best we can and save my own business as I go.
Great, and we'll look forward to hearing next time we speak just how the dining in Old Town is going, the expanded dining. Look forward to hearing if there's adjustments we need to make, or if we can expand that, or whatever we need to do. So thank you. Any questions for the Old Town Business Association from the group? Okay, well, that gets us through our agenda. Is there any roundtable items anybody has that they'd like to bring up before we adjourn the meeting? Yeah, go ahead, Cheryl.
I just wanted to go way back to the beginning of the meeting when you talked about the Memorial Day festivities and the flags. I think you misspoke when you said that they're going to be putting flags on the graves and the cemetery. They're not going to be doing that. They're putting them in a bucket, and you go pick up the flag yourself and put it on your loved one's spot, or anybody else that might be a veteran. But the Cub Scouts are not going out there to do it, and there isn't an organized effort to do that this year. So if you know somebody that's a veteran and you want a flag on their gravesite, you need to go get the flag yourself and put it on there. Okay.
I absolutely misspoke when I said that. So thank you. I appreciate you clarifying that and making sure to get that out so that we can still honor those in our cemetery who gave their lives or at least provided service to our country. And it's a shame that we are not able to recognize them on Monday. It's one of my favorite events, not out of fun, but just really out of respect for how many people in our cemetery served our nation. And so thank you for that. If any of you do have any loved ones, please pass that along so that we can still pay tribute. And I think one of the other sentiments that I'm hearing, not to completely go off a tangent on this item, but we should still flood our Facebook with Memorial Day pictures from previous events, since we can't be there on Monday as a group to show our appreciation for the men and women of Auburn and the nation that gave their lives serving. So Cheryl, thank you for
thank you.
Because I did misspeak and I appreciate that. Anybody else have any items go to the order? If not, thank you very much. If any of you or even anybody watching has items or topics for discussion, please let me know and we can get those added to Friday. And of course, we will continue to push on the stage 3 items and notify you when we hear anything else, because you're right, Tuesday's too late. So we'll continue to keep pushing. But in the interim, we will see you on Friday. So thank you, everybody, and have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Thanks, Chaz.
Have a good one, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.